They said mercy is weakness, until one woman proved them wrong. The room is silent, still. A heavy silence that lingers, hanging like the scent of smoke in the air. Isabella Moretti stands at the head of the table, her back straight, her posture unwavering. But there's a tremor in her fingers, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye. A subtle sign of the tension winding tightly in her chest. Across from her, Marek Kovac, once her closest ally, her most trusted friend, now stands with a cold, empty gaze. The envelope between them feels like a chasm, an abyss separating them. His hands are trembling as they hover over it, unwilling to touch what lies between them. Isabella doesn't look at the envelope. Her eyes are fixed on Marek, searching for truth, for something real, but all she finds is the faintest flicker of guilt. "I trusted you," she says, her voice steady, but carrying the weight of years of loyalty betrayed. Her words hang in the air, taut, electric. The silence in the room presses down, suffocating. "You've stolen from me, Marek. And now I have to decide what to do with you. It's not just the money. It's never just the money. It's the empire, the family they built together, the trust they shared." Isabella's gaze never leaves him. She knows the truth, but she won't say it. Not yet. Marek shifts his weight, swallowing hard. He opens his mouth as if to speak, but the words don't come. He knows there's nothing left to say. The damage has already been done. In the corner of the room, a sharp cough cuts through the stillness. One of the lieutenants, his nervousness palpable. He's waiting for the verdict. The others sit still, their eyes fixed on Isabella, unsure whether they're about to witness a fall from grace or a show of mercy. Isabella takes a breath. Deep, controlled. Her eyes flick to the envelope now resting between them. The contents are irrelevant. This moment is about power and mercy and the choice between the two. "Marek," she says, her voice lower now, a whisper only for him. "I've spent my life building this empire. I've done things that would make you question your loyalty, your trust, your soul. But now I have to ask, do I punish you or do I show mercy?" Another long silence follows. It feels endless. Every breath in the room is a confession. Every heartbeat a decision. She doesn't need to speak again. The room has already answered her question, even if she hasn't answered it herself. "I was never supposed to be here. Not in this chair. Not at the head of this table. I never asked for this life. But you can't escape what you're born into, can you? The blood, the family, there's no choice." Not really. The Moretti name has always carried weight in this world. But weight doesn't come without its price, and that price has always been clear. Isabella's mind drifts back to when she was just a girl, wide-eyed, full of naive ambition. She remembers the warmth of her father's hand on her shoulder, the way he whispered about loyalty and power in the quiet corners of their mansion. He was a man who taught her the laws of the world, not out of love, but necessity. His empire had been built on iron, and he expected nothing less than the same from her. But Isabella had always been different. There was a part of her that craved more than just power. She craved control over her own fate. She wanted to be seen, truly seen, not just as the daughter of the most powerful man in the room. She remembers her mother's smile, the way it would fade the moment the door clicked shut behind her father, leaving the silence to fill the spaces they'd left. Isabella had learned at an early age that silence could be more dangerous than any gun, more powerful than any threat. It was the quiet that made people listen. Her first lesson in power came when she was 14. A boy in her class, Marek, had made the mistake of calling her weak, something about her father's empire being built on outdated methods. The next day, the boy was gone. His family had left the city within 24 hours. He had no idea that to call Isabella weak was to invite a kind of reckoning. Her father's influence was never just in the open. It worked quietly, like a shadow, always watching, always waiting. That was the first time I understood. Power isn't just about what you do to others. It's about what you make them believe you can do to them. And belief? Belief is everything. Isabella's rise had been swift. Her father's health had begun to falter, his empire threatened by rivals and infighting within his own ranks. The more she took control, the more she realized that it wasn't just the criminals she had to fear, it was the betrayals from within. The whispers of those closest to her, Friends, allies, even family. Marek was one of the first to come to her side, not as a soldier, but as an equal. They had been inseparable in the beginning, two souls forged in the fire of ambition and loyalty. Together, they had carved out territories, crushed enemies, and built the empire that now stood before her. But as her power grew, so did the distance between them. She could feel it in the way Marek would look at her sometimes, that flicker of something, resentment, perhaps, or longing, she couldn't tell. It had started as small things, a disagreement here, a subtle challenge there, but the cracks had been forming long before she realized it. Still, even as she rose, there was one thing she never lost: the trust of the people who followed her. Her loyalty was never in question. She would die before she allowed betrayal to stain her bloodline. And that's what set her apart from her father, from the men who ran this world before her. She would be different. She had to be. I thought that loyalty was the most important thing, that it could keep you safe, keep you whole, but I was wrong. Loyalty is fragile. It bends, it breaks, and when it does, you find out just how little you really know about the people around you. The truth about Marek had been difficult to face, harder still to accept, but it was inevitable. Isabella had long known that this world doesn't forgive weakness, and Marek's betrayal was a reflection of that. A test. Her father had always said, "There's only room for one at the top, Izzy. Only one who can rule with an iron fist." That had been his final lesson, and it haunted her now. She had built everything on those words: power, control, loyalty. But now, faced with Marek's betrayal, she finds herself at a crossroads. For the first time, she is forced to question everything she thought she knew about power, and perhaps more frightening still, what mercy might cost her. Maybe there's more to this than I thought. Maybe mercy isn't weakness after all. Maybe it's what will make me stronger. I never believed in second chances. Not in this world. You either show loyalty, or you don't. There's no room for hesitation, no space for doubt. But even now, as I sit here, watching Marek across from me, I can't help but feel it, the crack in the foundation. The meeting had been ordinary. Just another round of negotiations, territory agreements, whispers of new enemies, the usual noise of the underworld. But there was something different in the air tonight, something off. Isabella couldn't put her finger on it, but she felt it in the room as soon as Marek entered. His usual confidence was gone. His posture was stiff, his eyes distant. She'd been watching him closely these past weeks, ever since that small incident. It hadn't seemed important at the time, just another conversation where Marek had drifted, talking less, avoiding eye contact, his words sharper than usual. She had dismissed it. After all, loyalty was a simple equation for her: follow the rules or face the consequences. But the cracks in his demeanor were impossible to ignore any longer. Marek was always loyal. Always. But loyalty isn't as simple as it seems. It's a currency, just like everything else. And I had to wonder, was it running out? Isabella leans forward, her fingers brushing the edge of her glass. Her gaze never leaves Marek. He's seated across from her at the conference table, his expression unreadable. He speaks in short, clipped sentences. His answers are to the point, no longer drawn out with the familiar humor or warmth they used to share. It's like someone has replaced him with an imposter. "I think we should increase pressure on the DeLuca territories," Marek suggests, his tone flat, almost rehearsed. Her brow furrows slightly. The DeLuca family had been a problem for years, but this sudden urgency in his voice, it doesn't sit right. Marek's always been a strategist, never rushed. "You're sure about this?" Isabella asks, her voice carefully neutral. The question hangs in the air. He doesn't respond immediately. He glances down at the papers in front of him, avoiding her gaze. A long pause follows. The silence is oppressive, but Isabella holds it. She waits. Finally, he looks up, his eyes meeting hers. But this time there's no warmth, no connection. Just a cold, calculating stare. "Yes, I'm sure," he says, his voice sharper now. The doubt creeps in like a slow poison, threading through her thoughts. Is this a decision he's making alone, or is there something more behind it? Something she's not seeing? I've learned to trust my instincts, and right now they're screaming, Something's wrong, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm looking at him through the wrong lens. The old lens, the one that's too trusting. The one I've outgrown. Isabella studies Marek for a moment longer, feeling the weight of years of shared history between them. She remembers the time they'd spent as partners, equals, their bond stronger than any of the others. But now, every word from him feels like it's laced with something she can't quite name. A whisper of something darker. Marek is hiding something. The meeting continues, but Isabella's mind is no longer on the conversation. She's no longer listening to the others in the room. She's lost in the unease that's slowly consuming her thoughts. I've built this empire on trust, on loyalty, but now I'm beginning to wonder if it's been all smoke and mirrors. Am I really in control? Or am I just another piece on a chessboard waiting for someone to make the next move? As the meeting wraps up, Marek stands to leave without a glance in her direction. He doesn't even say goodbye. The coldness between them feels like a chasm. But then he pauses at the door, his hand resting on the frame. He doesn't turn around. "I'll be in my office if you need me," Marek says, his voice almost forced. Isabella's chest tightens. He's not even looking at her anymore. Something's changed, and I can feel it in every fiber of my being. Marek's loyalty is slipping, and with it, the trust we built. As he leaves, Isabella remains seated at the table. She picks up her glass, her fingers still trembling. The weight of the decision she has yet to make hangs heavily in the air. Mercy? Power? Which will she choose? Which one is worth saving? And more importantly, who can she trust to help her make that decision? Thought it would end like this. Isabella stands alone in her office, her fingers gripping the edge of the desk. The papers in front of her blur as her mind races, replaying the moments of the last few weeks. The subtle changes in Marek's behavior, the quiet challenges, the sudden coldness. It had all led to this. She exhales slowly, trying to calm the storm inside her. But the truth hits her with the force of a blow. Marek has betrayed her. It wasn't the money he'd stolen. It wasn't just his actions, but the trust he had shredded into pieces. He had become an enemy from within. And that's what stings the most. It was always him, wasn't it? The one she had been closest to, the one she had relied on. I never asked for this, but I see it now. This is what loyalty gets you. You give it, and someone will take it and break it when it suits them. The door to her office opens without a knock. She doesn't need to look up. She already knows who it is. Marek, standing there, silent, his eyes locked on hers with an expression that is both defiant and empty. "Isabella," he says, his voice cold, almost clinical. "It's done." She feels the words like a slap. It's done. As though it were just another transaction, another move in the game. But this isn't a game for her. This was her world, her life, her empire. It's never a game for me, and that's what makes this worse. He doesn't understand what he's done. Or maybe he does. Maybe that's the part that hurts the most. She slowly stands, her breath catching in her throat. "What do you mean it's done?" Her voice is sharp, but there's a quiet tremor that betrays the fear crawling up her spine. Marek takes a step forward, his hands in his pockets. His posture is relaxed, but there's a tension in his face, something that she's never seen before. A shift, a coldness that chills her. "I've made my move, Izzy," he says almost dismissively. "You've always been about power. You just never saw me for what I really am. It's not just your empire anymore. You can't control it." His words pierce through the silence like a blade. Isabella freezes. She had always trusted him, always believed that their bond was unbreakable. "What did you do?" she whispers, the air thickening around them. "It's too late now. I already know. I feel it in the way the air around me has shifted, like a weight pressing down on my chest." Marek pulls out an envelope, tossing it onto the desk in front of her. She stares at it for a moment, the realization sinking in. The evidence is in the envelope. Proof of his betrayal. Proof that he's sold her out. It's almost too easy for him, isn't it? Just another transaction. But for Isabella, it's not just a betrayal of business. It's a betrayal of everything she's ever believed in. In loyalty, in the people who swore allegiance to her, in Marek, in herself. The wound isn't in the loss of power, it's the loss of trust. The loss of something that, until now, had felt unbreakable. She slowly opens the envelope, her eyes scanning the documents inside. The names, the deals, the backstabbing. The list of people who have conspired against her. And at the top of the list, Marek's name. I should have seen it. I should have known. But instead I gave him everything. And this is what he gives me in return. The sting of betrayal is sharper than any blade I've ever felt. Marek watches her. A strange emptiness in his eyes. I don't regret it, Izzy, he says quietly. This is how it's always been. The strong survive. And you've always been strong, but not anymore. The finality of his words cuts deeper than the betrayal itself. He doesn't regret it. He doesn't even seem to care. And in that moment, Isabella knows. The game is over. I may have lost my faith in him, but I'm not lost. Not yet. There's still one thing left for me to do, and when it's done, Marek will understand what it means to betray me. The cost of mercy will never be the same again. There's no room for second chances in this world. I've always known that, and yet, here I am, standing before the man I trusted, the man I thought was my equal, the man who's turned his back on me, and now I have to decide what happens next. Isabella's steps echo in the hallway, a sharp contrast to the quiet stillness of the building. She moves with purpose, her heels clicking against the cold marble floors, each step drawing her closer to Marek's office. The air feels thicker now, as though the walls themselves are holding their breath. She had sent for him, her voice calm, controlled when she issued the order. But now, as she approaches his door, she can feel the familiar heat rising in her chest. The anger that she's held back for so long. The anger that's now bubbling to the surface. This is the moment of reckoning. She opens the door, stepping inside without a word. Marek is already standing by his desk, his back to her, looking out the window. The office is dimly lit, the city skyline stretching out in front of them, indifferent to the storm brewing inside the room. You wanted to see me, Izzy? His voice is quiet, almost too calm. Isabella doesn't waste time with pleasantries. She walks straight toward him, her movements deliberate, each one carrying the weight of the decision she's about to make. You betrayed me. Marek. Her voice is firm, the words cold, like a knife cutting through the space between them. He turns to face her, his eyes steely, his expression unreadable. For a moment the two of them just stand there, the tension thick enough to choke on. I didn't betray you, Marek says, his voice low but steady. I did what was necessary. You should have seen it coming, Izzy. I've been your right hand for years. But loyalty doesn't mean I owe you my soul. The words hit her like a slap. But she doesn't flinch. She's past the point of flinching. She's past the point of allowing anyone to believe they can walk all over her. I gave him everything, and he gave me nothing but excuses, nothing but lies. Isabella steps forward, closing the distance between them, and she can see the subtle shift in his posture. He's trying to hold on to control, but he's starting to realize something. She's not the same person anymore. She's not the woman who would hesitate or doubt. She's not the woman who would forgive. What you did wasn't about loyalty, Isabella continues, her voice dropping to a near whisper. It was about control. You wanted to be the one in charge. You thought I wouldn't see it, didn't you? Marek's jaw tightens. For the first time, she sees the cracks in his own facade, the mask of indifference slipping just slightly. You're wrong, he says, taking a step back, his eyes flashing with something darker now. I didn't want to take your place, Izzy. I wanted to be free. And you... He cuts himself off, his voice cracking for just a second. You trapped me. I wanted out, and I took it. Isabella feels the weight of his words sink into her chest. She always knew Marek had ambitions beyond her, but this was more than just ambition. This was a betrayal of everything they built together. Free, that's what he calls it. He calls it freedom, when all he's done is tie himself to a lie. She takes another step forward, her body tense, her fists clenched. This is the moment she takes control back, the moment she redefines what power really means. You think I don't see what you did? You think I don't know? Isabella's voice rises, her emotions no longer contained. You made a choice, Marek. A choice to betray me. And now you have to face it. There's a silence that hangs between them, the weight of their shared history pressing down on both of them. And then, Isabella says the words she never thought she'd have to say to someone she once called a friend. You're done. Leave. Now. Marek's face hardens, his pride and anger rising like a storm, but he doesn't argue. He knows better than that. For all his bravado, he knows the game is up. This is what happens when you play the game too long. You forget the rules, and then the game plays you. Marek turns, his back to her as he walks toward the door, the weight of his failure bearing down on him. He doesn't look back. And Isabella? She stands there, her chest heaving, feeling the power of her own decision. For the first time in a long time, she's not afraid. She's not afraid to make the hard choices, to take back her power. There's something worse than betrayal. It's the lie that makes you believe the betrayal never happened, the illusion that you were always in control, that nothing could touch you, until the truth breaks through. Isabella sits at her desk, her fingers tapping against the smooth surface, the quiet sound almost too loud in the otherwise still room. Her mind is still spinning with the weight of the confrontation. Marek is gone, but the words he left behind continue to echo in her thoughts. Freedom. He had wanted freedom, and now she wonders, was that his only motive? Or was there something else? Something deeper, something darker. A knock at the door pulls her from her thoughts. It's Jonah, her confidant, the one person she still trusts completely. He enters without waiting for her permission, his usual calm demeanor replaced by an intensity she's rarely seen in him. You need to see this, Jonah says, his voice steady but tight with urgency. He holds out a small folder, just a few pages, but the weight of it feels monumental. Isabella looks at him, her brow furrowing slightly. What is it? Jonah doesn't answer immediately. He opens the folder, slides it across the desk, and Isabella sees it, the documents that Marek had left behind, the evidence of his betrayal. She picks up the first page, her hands barely trembling, though the shock of what she's reading starts to set in. She scans through the text, her mind struggling to make sense of what's unfolding in front of her. It's never the betrayal itself that cuts the deepest. It's what you learn after, the truth you never wanted to see, the things you never thought were possible. The documents are more than just Marek's dealings with her rivals. There are also names of people she trusted, who had been in on it. He hadn't just betrayed her. He had been orchestrating this from within for months, playing both sides of the game, and at the center of it all, she realizes, was Marek's ambition. He didn't just want to take over. He wanted to reshape everything. He wanted to tear down the walls of the empire she had built and replace it with something new. He's been playing me the entire time, she whispers, her voice barely audible. I thought he was loyal. But this is more than betrayal. This is a complete overhaul. Jonah's expression darkens. There's more. He flips to another page and slides it over to her. Isabella's eyes widen as she reads the new revelation. It's a list of names, not just from within her organization, but from other families, rival bosses who have been feeding information to Marek. He had been setting up alliances to undermine her, to take her down from the inside. Every empire has a weakness, and I guess I should have known that my weakness was trusting him too much, trusting anyone too much. Her breath catches in her chest as the full scope of Marek's plans come into focus. He hadn't been working alone. There were other players involved, people she'd trusted, people she had called family. They had been moving behind her back, using her loyalty to manipulate her. Marek had always been ambitious, but this was treason. And it wasn't just about power, it was about control, his desire to reshape everything. He had spent months weaving this web of deception, and Isabella had been blind to it. The worst part is, I didn't even see it. I thought I was invincible, thought I could handle anything. But what Marek did wasn't just betrayal. It was a carefully crafted lie that I bought into. And now, the truth is all I have left. She sets the documents down and leans back in her chair, feeling the weight of the truth settle over her like a suffocating fog. Her empire isn't just under threat, it's been undermined from within. The people she thought she could trust have turned on her. And Marek, he's nowhere to be found. The truth has hit her like a freight train, and there's no escaping it. Everything has changed. Jonah, she says, her voice steady but laced with an edge she can't quite hide. I need to fix this. I need to make sure this never happens again. Jonah looks at her, his face softening. We'll fix it together. But you need to understand something, Izzy. You're not alone in this. Not anymore. I've spent my life building this empire on my own, but now I'm beginning to see what I've missed. This fight is no longer just mine, and if I'm going to survive it, I'll need to be more than just a boss. I'll need to be a leader again. One who doesn't trust blindly. One who remembers the cost of loyalty. Isabella stands, pushing the papers away, her mind already shifting into overdrive. She's been knocked down, but she's not broken. Not yet. The truth has been revealed, and now the only thing left is revenge. There are times when silence is louder than any words, and then there are moments when even silence can't keep the truth locked away. This is one of those moments. Isabella stands in front of the window, looking out at the skyline. The city that once seemed so full of promise, full of power, now feels distant, foreign. She can barely remember the woman she was when she started this journey, when the world at her feet felt like an empire, and every decision felt like an extension of her will. Now, it feels like the walls are closing in. Her breath catches as she looks at the reflection staring back at her in the glass. The face of the woman who has fought tooth and nail for control, for loyalty, for power. The face of the woman who once believed that mercy was a weakness. But the woman staring back is no longer the same. She has been changed, broken even, by the choices she's made, by the betrayal that has now completely shattered her world. I used to think that if I built this empire on power, I could stand above everyone else. I thought that I could rise above the rest of them. Above my father, above Marek, above everything. But the higher you climb, the farther you fall. And now, I'm not sure what's left to hold on to. A knock at the door pulls her from her thoughts. She doesn't have to say anything. Jonah steps in, his presence always grounding her, even in the darkest moments. He's been with her through everything. And yet she has never fully let him in. She's never shown him the parts of herself that are broken, that still feel too raw to show anyone. Jonah doesn't speak right away. He simply stands there, waiting, understanding that this moment is hers. But his eyes, the quiet concern, the subtle worry, speak volumes. Isabella takes a deep breath and finally turns to face him, her expression unreadable at first. But Jonah has always been able to see through her. He knows that something has changed, and he's waiting for her to admit it. "Jonah," she says softly, her voice strained. "I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I've become." Jonah steps forward, his hand reaching out to her, but she pulls away, not because she doesn't want him to touch her, but because she can't stand the thought of anyone seeing her weakness, the cracks in her armor. Maybe that's the worst part of this. The way it feels like everything I've built is crumbling beneath me. All the decisions, all the risks, the people I've trusted, everything I've worked for. I thought it meant something. But now, I'm starting to wonder if any of it was worth it. Jonah doesn't say anything. He doesn't need to. His presence alone speaks to the bond they share. But still, Isabella feels a weight pressing down on her chest, the same weight she's carried alone for so long. The fear that if she admits the truth to anyone, she'll lose everything. Her eyes meet his, and for the first time in years, she lets herself feel the vulnerability. Lets herself see the truth. "I was wrong," she whispers. "All of it. I thought I was strong, but strength isn't enough. It never was." Jonah steps closer, his voice quiet but firm. "You're still strong, Izzy. But strength doesn't mean you have to carry everything alone. It doesn't mean you have to lock yourself in the cage of your own making." He's right, isn't he? All this time, I've convinced myself that power is the answer, that control is everything. But now, I realize that I've been controlling myself into a prison, and I've locked everyone else out, even him, even Marek. For the first time, Isabella lets herself cry. Just a single tear, but it feels like the floodgates are opening. The grief, the anger, the loss, it all floods through her and she lets herself feel it. For the first time in so long, she doesn't try to hide behind the walls of her empire. She doesn't try to hold it all in. I never wanted to be this cold. I never wanted to lose who I was. But now, I don't know how to find her again, she admits, her voice cracking. Jonah doesn't answer, but he steps forward, offering her his presence, his comfort, not as a soldier, not as a confidant, but as someone who understands. I don't know what happens next, I don't know how to fix this, but one thing I do know is that I can't keep pretending like nothing hurts. I can't keep pretending like I'm invincible. Isabella wipes away her tears and takes a deep breath, feeling something inside of her shift. The weight is still there, but it no longer feels like it's crushing her. It's just a part of her, a part of what she's becoming. I need to face this, she says, her voice steadying. I need to face the truth, and I need to make sure it never happens again. Jonah nods, his expression softening. You'll do it. I know you will. Isabella takes one final steadying breath, the air feeling clearer now. The storm isn't over, but she's ready to face it. Sometimes, the hardest thing isn't finding the strength to fight. It's finding the strength to let go, to accept what's broken and decide that it's worth fixing. But that's the difference between power and control, isn't it? Power doesn't demand perfection. It just demands that you keep moving forward. The office is quiet now. The tension that had once hung in the air is gone, replaced by something lighter, yet more fragile. Isabella sits at her desk, the papers scattered in front of her, but her gaze isn't on the documents anymore. It's on the window, the city stretching out before her like a canvas, still full of potential. She doesn't know exactly what tomorrow will bring. She doesn't know who will remain loyal or who will leave her in search of easier power. But there's something different in her heart now, a kind of peace she hasn't felt in years. For the first time, Isabella allows herself to breathe, deep, slow breaths, feeling the weight on her chest lift, even if just for a moment. I've spent so much of my life trying to control everything, trying to make sure nothing slips through my fingers. But control isn't what keeps you strong. It's the choices you make when everything is out of your hands. That's what I've learned. Isabella picks up the phone on her desk, her fingers lingering over the receiver. She hesitates for a moment, then dials the number. She waits as it rings, her heart beating a little faster, the sound of it strangely grounding her. Finally, the voice on the other end answers. This is Isabella. There's a long pause on the other side of the line, and then the familiar voice of Jonah comes through. I knew you'd call. Isabella smiles faintly, her fingers still gripping the receiver. I'm ready, she says simply. Ready to take the next step. But this time, it's going to be different. Jonah's voice is calm, reassuring. I'll be right by your side. I can't do this alone. Maybe I never could, but I can't carry this burden if I don't allow someone else to help me carry it. She sets the phone down and stands up, walking over to the window again. The city feels different now, as though she's seeing it through new eyes. Her empire may have been fractured, but the pieces are still there, and she's learned that it's not the destruction that defines you. It's the rebirth that follows. She looks out over the skyline, the weight of what's happened still lingering, but it doesn't feel oppressive anymore. It feels like a challenge she's ready to face. Her thoughts drift to Marek, to the choices he made. He had betrayed her, yes, but he had also opened her eyes. To the cost of power, to the price of trust. And now, with a steadier heart, she's ready to rebuild, not just her empire, but herself. And maybe, just maybe, forgive. Mercy is not a weakness. Mercy is the only thing that separates the truly powerful from those who will fall. I learned that the hard way. But now, I will lead with strength, with grace, and with the understanding that even those who betray us have a part in the story, a part in who we become. Isabella turns from the window, her eyes steady as she looks at the empty chair beside her desk, the chair she used to sit in alone. But now there's space for more. She feels the quiet shift in the air, the subtle but sure weight of what lies ahead. And I will choose who stands with me, those who are loyal, those who are ready to see the truth and move forward. We are not defined by the mistakes we make, but by the choices we make after. I will choose mercy, and I will choose power. But this time, I will do it differently. She takes a deep breath, the calm settling around her like a protective cloak. It's a new beginning, a chance to rebuild, to make different choices, and to move forward with the wisdom that only pain can teach. The door opens behind her, and she hears Jonah's footsteps approaching. She doesn't turn to look at him, but she doesn't need to. She knows he's there, and together, they will face whatever comes next. Power is an illusion. I used to think it was everything, the thing that would keep me safe, keep me in control. But what I've learned is this: Power doesn't protect you. It just isolates you. The office is quiet now, and Isabella feels the weight of the room shift. The same space where so much has unfolded, so many decisions made, now feels like a place of renewal. She stands by the window staring at the city that is still waking up beneath her. But this time, there's no urgency. No race to get ahead, no rush to prove herself. In the silence, she reflects on the journey that led her here. The mistakes, the betrayals, the walls she had built around her heart. She thinks of Marek, and of Jonah, and of the many people who've come in and out of her life. I thought I knew what loyalty meant, she murmurs. I thought it was about obedience, about never questioning, never doubting. But loyalty isn't about submission. It's about trust. It's about the courage to stand with someone, not because you have to, but because you believe in them. I spent so long trying to control everything, trying to make it all perfect. But perfection doesn't exist. Power doesn't make you perfect. It just makes you afraid. Afraid to show weakness. Afraid to show vulnerability. Afraid to let anyone in. Isabella takes a deep breath, a small, almost imperceptible sigh escaping her lips. The air feels different now, lighter. She feels the weight of her past choices, but it no longer suffocates her. She's made her peace with them. What Marek taught me, she continues, was that the strongest people are the ones who can still be human, who can still be vulnerable, the ones who can still love even when it feels dangerous, the ones who can show mercy when every instinct tells them not to. She turns from the window and walks over to the desk, picking up the papers that had once felt so heavy, the documents, the plans, the threats that had once seemed insurmountable. They're still there, still waiting for her to act. But now the act won't be one of revenge. It will be one of building, not destroying. Mercy isn't weakness. It's strength, and I've learned that I don't need to keep building walls around me. I can be both powerful and kind. I can protect what I've built and still leave room for love, for trust, for understanding. Isabella looks down at the papers in her hand, her fingers brushing over the words written on them. The empire she's inherited, the empire she's built, it's hers to shape. She is not the same woman who started this journey, the woman who sought only to control, the woman who believed power was everything. Now she knows the truth. Power comes when you lead with integrity, when you protect those who follow you, and not just your own pride. Loyalty is something that's earned, but it's also something you give. She places the papers back on the desk, her hands steady. Her eyes linger on the city outside, the skyline now bathed in the soft light of morning. It's still the same city, but everything feels different. There's no end to this journey. There's always something more to build, more to learn, more to grow from. But I know one thing now. The real power is in the choices we make after we fall. It's in the moments where we can choose to rise again, not alone, but with the ones who stand by us. Isabella looks to the door as Jonah enters. He doesn't say anything, just stands there, watching her with a quiet understanding. She nods, acknowledging the shared moment. The empire is still hers to command, but now it's built on something more than just fear and control. It's built on the wisdom of knowing when to wield mercy and when to stand firm. They say we are defined by the choices we make, but maybe the truth is that we are defined by the ones we learn to forgive, the ones we choose to let go. Isabella stands at the window once again, the same view she's had all along. But now it feels different. New, even. The city has changed, but so has she. Her empire still stands, but it's not the same empire. Not anymore, it's quieter now. The noise of power is still there, but it no longer feels like the foundation of everything. She has learned that power isn't just about control. It's about connection, about the relationships that bind us, the ones we choose to hold close, and the ones we choose to let go. She breathes in deeply, feeling the weight of the last few days lifting. The betrayals, the pain, the anger, it's all still there, but it doesn't consume her anymore. She's learned to carry it differently. I thought I knew what strength was. I thought it was about never showing weakness, about standing tall and demanding respect. But now I know. Strength is in knowing when to let your guard down. It's in trusting again, even when it feels impossible. Jonah steps up beside her, his presence steady and calm. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't need to. There's no more need for words between them. The bond they share is enough, and for the first time, Isabella feels the peace of that. She's not alone anymore. "You've made it through," Jonah says quietly, his voice almost like a soft affirmation. Isabella nods, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. She finally feels like she's returned to herself, even if she's not the same woman she was before. She's stronger now, more whole, and she understands the balance she needs to maintain. The journey doesn't end here. There are always more battles to fight, more choices to make. But I know now that power isn't something you keep to yourself. It's something you share, something you build with others. And as long as I have that, I will always find a way to move forward. Isabella turns away from the window, her eyes meeting Jonah's. There's no need for grand speeches, no dramatic final words. The connection between them, the silent understanding, is enough. The room may be quiet, but Isabella knows that the quiet is her strength. It's the strength of knowing when to speak, when to listen, and when to just be. She walks towards the door, ready to face whatever comes next. Not as a ruler who demands loyalty out of fear, but as a leader who has learned that real strength comes from connection, from mercy, from understanding. The door closes behind her softly. The story doesn't end here, but it begins again, with new wisdom, new strength, and a new way forward.